Well, hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and if you're lucky enough indeed to be doing it too. I'm Bushka, and today we're going to be talking about a topic that's been requested a lot. Like, this is one of the ways I actually do my videos, is I look at what you guys want to know, and then I try and give it to you. I know it's a crazy idea to have a consumer that wants something and provide it to them, but I'm trying to do it here for probably the first time ever. And this is about recoil. Recoil, controlling the beast. I had a really hard think about this video and how I wanted to approach it, and it kind of tied in with a couple of things. Doing a DP28 masterclass, which I am at the moment, and how guns work and everything. And I get a lot of people that seem to want to have, they want to know the trick to controlling recoil. And it's just not a trick. There isn't a trick. There are a lot of things you can do, and it's so nuanced, and there's so much to it, that what I decided to do was put some footage of me rocking and socking around the joint down and have a good chat to you about things, and then show you a couple of little specific examples of what I'm talking about. But I want to cover off on the absolute must-know basics of recoil right now. And one of them is choose your equipment correctly. I get people asking me things like, how do you control the full spray on a 4x scope when you're running an AKM? And it just boggles my mind, because you really don't. You don't want to run an AKM and run 4x scope and go full throttle with it, because that's not how the gun was designed. Now, there are some people out there who can control recoil in a godlike fashion, but guys, I've got to tell you, it's not because they're doing something different to you. It's because they're better than you. And what I'm here to teach you, and I'm here to talk to you about, is the things you can control as a player without being the best PUBG mobile player in the world. And the number one thing you can control is your equipment. Now, I'm going to do a boring bit here where I show you something on the range, but here we go. Recoil is different across all weapons, and that's how they nuance the weapons, is how they make them interesting. But there's something you need to understand straight off the bat. Compensators are better for gun handling than suppressors and flash hiders. If you want to lower your recoil, run a compensator. I don't know how many people are like running around with suppressors on AKMs and using them with 4x scopes in full auto and wondering how they can better control recoil. Well, there's a way you can better control recoil. Put a red dot on it, put a compensator on it, and be happier. But there's also something called the rule of 5. Have a look at these shots. You can see that the first round goes exactly where the dot is on the reticle, and then it jumps up from there, and then you get a group of about 3 or 4 rounds, depending on the gun that you're firing, that are all in a very, very tight spot. If you just hold the button down, then it's going to climb all the way up. But if you can start dragging the button down after the second shot or the third shot and get proactive on your recoil, you can do things like this. Now, I'm going to slow this down so you can see. And I'm running the QBZ 95 with a half grip, which is one of the most recoil-friendly full auto ARs you're going to find. I am going to slow this down even further so that you can really get your grip on this concept. The first 4 or 5 shots are going to be pretty cool, right? But what if you start pulling down for recoil, like on shot number 2, which is what I do here? I start chucking it down lower and lower and lower. I'm actually aiming down at his feet, and the gun will naturally climb back up through the target. Now, you have to start doing this and putting it in your gameplay, but it will clear targets so much more effectively than waiting for the recoil to start hitting after the 5th bullet and wondering why it's so hard to control. You've got to get proactive with this. I want to show you again, just quickly, this range. Watch when I fire the weapon, the groupings. It will leap up. Now, there are some guns that do this better than others, but the point that I'm trying to make here is, and we're going to get to a little bit later as well, is horizontal recoil doesn't really start kicking in massively until about the 5th to 6th round. The first 4 or 5 rounds, you can see the groupings are pretty much dead up. Like, you're going straight up. Particularly with guns like the AKM, that's why you want to fire off in like those 5-round bursts when you start hitting at range, because that's where they're really, really effective. And then as you get to round number 5, they start veering off left and right. And we will talk about horizontal recoil. Boy, will we talk about horizontal recoil. You absolute gorgeous human beings. But understand that pretty much every automatic weapon in the game is going to be subject to this rule of 5. And if you can get your head around that, you can start using the guns effectively a lot more often rather than just holding down the button and praying for rain. Or you can just get a gun that has super low recoil. This is a DP28. Watch this in full auto mode at 15 meters. You can do that if you can use your thumb. Recoil is all about dragging the thumb down. And I'm not going to talk about gyroscope and all that kind of thing because it's a small portion of the population that uses gyroscope and I'm not one of them. But I do want to talk about the theory of all this stuff. People fall in love with absolutes. The maximum damage gun. Like this is a Beryl M762. The maximum damage gun. And how can I do the most damage really, really quickly? And I'm a bit the same, you know. I love that, and that's one of the reasons why I've always had a bit of an affair with the M16. But the Beryl fires very, very fast. The DP28 fires relatively slowly. There's a big gap. The Beryl fires as fast as a 5.56 AR fires, which is around every 0.085 seconds. Now, I know this because I've tested it. I've gone on the range and done it all, but the DP28 is like 1.11 seconds. It's like 30% slower. Crazy, hey? But the DP28 hits more shots. So it's not just about the fact that the DP28 doesn't do as much damage as fast. It's about in a real world applicable situation where you're moving around and hitting a target that's actually running around the place at 50 meters. The DP28 is going to be a better weapon more likely because it is easy to control the gun and it's easy to get the gun on target. Now, this is a long-winded way of saying that there is no one single answer to all of this. You are far better off learning to use the weapons effectively. There's an AKM. I fire it in short bursts. An AKM is horrible for recoil. Controlling the recoil of the AKM is tough. You've got to get ahead of it. You've got to get that gun dragged down early. But if you want to control it and you want to learn how to do it, the only real way of doing that is getting out in the field and frickin' firing the gun in tough situations. Where does it work best? About this range. Everyone fall down because I've got an AKM. That's really the guts of it. So, enough being preachy. Let me talk a little bit more about how you can best deal with recoil. And this is something I've talked about in videos before, but if you want to know about the grips, I did a massive video on grips, a massive monumental video on grips, and I still get people popping in the channel saying, you don't know what you're talking about, this isn't correct and all this. Do not take the stats of PC for mobile. They are not the same. They are very similar, but they are not the same. Now, you can often see me running a half grip. That's that ready orange grip that you can see underneath the end of my lovely Scar L here. The half grip doesn't do a whole lot for vertical recoil. There are two kinds of recoil, really. Vertical and horizontal, obviously, because we've got two... Anyway, I mean, I don't want to Captain Obvious here. The vertical recoil goes straight up, and you control that by dragging your thumb straight down. But horizontal recoil goes in two directions, left and right, and you cannot control all three at once. What I find to be the best and most viable outcome is to run a half grip, which gives you the maximum reduction in horizontal recoil, and then deal with the vertical recoil yourself. And that is why if I'm firing automatically, I will fire with a half grip on pretty much every weapon. The only weapons that I might possibly run a vertical foregrip with, the Beryl M762, and obviously the Vector, because it's, you know, when vertical recoil becomes the massive, most overriding issue, then it's really, really important. The other thing is range. I mean, recoil control is important at close range, but at longer ranges, it becomes paramount unless you learn how to fire the weapon correctly. If you're firing a 7.62, you need to control your rate of fire. If you're firing this far away, all you need to do is press the button. And what do I mean by control your rate of fire? Well, you don't step on the weapon. You don't press the button as quickly as possible. If you're firing an SKS and you're at 150, 200 meters and you're tapping it as fast as I was firing at those guys on top of the barracks in military base, then the gun is going to go everywhere like a mad human's poop. It will be absolutely all over the place. It'll be as mad as a clown's donger. You can't do that. What you need to do is pace out your shots so that if you're firing an SKS or an SLR or a QBU and you're firing at a target that's a long way away, take a shot every 0.1 of a second, and you'll see that the gun will go everywhere. Take a shot every 0.3 of a second and you'll see that the control of your recoil is much better. And you'll say, well, but I can kill them a lot faster if I press the button faster. Well, no, you can't. Because what will happen there is the gun will go everywhere, you won't hit any of your shots, and all you're doing is letting everyone know where you are and having a bad old time of it. Recoil control is all about giving yourself the best opportunities. I'm running a Scar L here, okay? It's a really good weapon for controlling recoil. The first 5 rounds on a Scar L are absolutely laser beam like. It's one of the reasons why I love the QBZ. And I set myself up for low recoil guns all the time. I had people tell me that I was crazy for running the UMP instead of ARs like the AK. But the UMP has one of the best recoil profiles that money can buy. You can literally just hold the trigger down on a UMP and it doesn't really rise up noticeably compared to, say, an AKM. And yet the damage output of a UMP is not far behind the damage output of an AKM. And people say, well, that's ridiculous. The AKM does more damage per shell. Yeah, it does do more damage per shell. That's no shit, Sherlock. But here's a crazy idea. You miss a whole hell of a lot more with an AKM when you're running it with that 4x scope at 100 meters. You don't miss a whole hell of a lot with the UMP when you're just holding the button down. You've got to be nuanced about it. And it's one of the big reasons why running, say, an AKM and a Car 98 can be a really tough gig at times, and why the best players will often run an AKM and, say, a DP28, because you need versatility in your loadout. And you've got to factor all these things in when you're choosing weapons. If you're going to run a Car 98K like I am here, and you're running an AKM, then, well, you don't have a lot of versatility. You're brilliant really, really close, and you're brilliant really, really far away, and you're pretty crap everywhere else in between. So that's why 5.56 ARs like the Scar L are so popular and they're so valuable. And it's why guns like the DP28 get marginalized a lot of the time, because people don't want to run a gun like the DP28 and miss out on running a gun like an M24. Or if they're running the M24 and they want to run a DP28, then they fall over, because although they can control the recoil really well, when it's push coming to shove, someone with a Beryl M762 is going to tear you apart in the 10 meter range. So I know this is a long-winded and like there are no simple things here, but I don't think it would be fair and honest to make a video where I said to control recoil, all you need to do is run X, Y, Z, and you are going to be the best player in the world, because it quite simply does not exist. You need to understand so much more about the game, and you need to really make the most of it. If you want to run your AKM as a DMR, that's great. Lots of people do. They put it on single shot, and then they use that versatility, and when they get up close and personal, they'll switch it to automatic. Yeah. But that's a whole different ball of wax than what we were talking about before. Now I'm running, and the reason I chose this clip in particular is you can see I'm running a Scar L with a vertical foregrip. Why does that still work? Well, one of the things the Scar L has going for it is really good limited horizontal recoil. So you can run a Scar L, and if you're good enough with controlling the thumb and keeping that recoil down, you can full spray a SCAR-L in medium ranges, short to medium ranges, because it doesn't have a lot of horizontal recoil. I hope this has been helpful for you guys. It really is something that I've gone right down the rabbit hole on. The short answer, try and run the best equipment you can. The long answer, well, you've just had 15 minutes of it. I just don't want you going out there thinking that there is an easy fix for controlling the beast that is recoil. You've got to know your stuff. And if you want to watch the videos, there is a massive, massive video I made on picking the right grip. The attachments, run a compensator. There are obviously guns where the compensator does nothing, like the AWM, for instance, or the Kar98. If you've got a single shot rifle, the compensator is going to do absolutely bugger all. And if you're running in solo versus squatter against multiple targets, the suppressor is really, really valuable, as you can see here, because it's giving fewer targets who are outside my field of view the opportunity to find out where I am. And you balance that up against the compensator. And particularly if you're running, say, a SCAR-L, then you've got such good gun handling anyway, and you've got the ability to control it with your thumb pretty confidently, that you can get away with running a suppressor. The same with an M416. You can run an M416, a half grip, and a tactical stock, and the suppressors, like, if you've got that on an M416, you've got great gun handling regardless. So I don't know. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot that you need to know about, and there's a lot more on this subject that we could go through. What are your thoughts? What do you do to control recoil? Where do you draw the line between, getting the best equipment and having the best tactical advantage, like running a suppressor or running a... Like, I will run a 3x scope on a 5.56 AR and full spray pretty confidently, but the best scope I find for my full spray is a 2x. That will give me the opportunity to hit targets at a pretty close range. Yeah, have at it, boys and girls. Let me know what you think. Until next time, if you do want to become a patron and join in the Discord server, we're going to be doing our live stream tomorrow, which will be all about jumping in squads with the patrons. The link is in the video there. If you do that, you also get access to the Discord channel, the private rooms of the Discord channel. You get to come on the live streams. I sometimes drop the videos early there too, all that kind of stuff. If you want to know the stats on all these guns, which I have in a spreadsheet on my Discord server, the link for the Discord server is down below. The spreadsheet is pinned in the general channel there. And there's a lot of chat goes on in there, and there's a really good knowledge base there that people share and talk through. Yeah, I'm Bushka. Look after yourselves, and as always, stay safe on the battlefield. Bye for now.